First up, a huge thank you to Panenka Bar and Grill for supporting the channel. You can find us there before every home game and post game, either celebrating or drowning our sorrows. It's a great premium bar and it's situated less than half a mile from beautiful downtown Bramall Lane.
Also, a huge thank you to Parrot Peel. They are a virtual band who create innovative musical experiences just for you. But you already knew that, didn't you? We've been talking about them for long enough. But please do go to parrotpeel.com and check them out because they are awesome. Ale, ale, ale. Ale, ale, ale. Ale, ale, ale. Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and anybody else who is joining me here today. This is the Sheffield United Way, and today we are talking about transfer rumours. More specifically, we are talking about one transfer rumour which seems to have gone crazy, as far as I can tell. Absolutely insane over the last few days. Very much talking about Kieffer Moore and the rumours that he is going to be joining Hollywood FC, the Disney team, Wrexham Football Club. So let's start off very high level. What is the rumour? What have we seen being reported in the last few days? Well, it's Alan Nixon where this news has come from, and he's been reporting on Twitter that Wrexham are interested in signing Kieffer Moore, but more mind-blowing than that, and where this one's gone a little bit insane, he's reporting that Wrexham are going to offer £4 million to sign Kieffer Moore. He also reports that he's planning to make Kieffer Moore one of the highest paid players in the Championship. They are reporting £30,000 a week as being his current wage. They say that Wrexham will dwarf that and make him a much higher offer in terms of how they want to pay them. And I mean, this seems mad, absolutely mental. I mean, before we go into any more detail, before we go into whether or not this could actually happen, let's just take a moment to appreciate how insane this feels. That figure, £4 million, if that is anywhere near being accurate, then we have to just take that money and run. That would be unbelievable business on United's part. That would see us make an unbelievable amount of profit on a player who, in his 12 months with United, I quite like him. I'm not going to lie. I might be in the minority, but I think Kieffer Moore is a pretty good player. I think he's done okay for United, albeit, yes, Wembley. But for the most part, I think he's actually given everything he's got for United. I quite like him. But if we can make £2.5 million worth of profit on a 32-year-old striker who's only scored 5 goals for the club, that is fantastic business. That's just blown my mind. That it makes me wonder what's going on at Wrexham, that they would even be willing to contemplate those kind of figures. I know he's a Wales international. Maybe that weighs on their mind a little bit. Maybe that gives you a reason they would want to bring him in, but just madness. Absolute madness. But that's the report from Alan Nixon. That's what he's reporting in terms of the fee, in terms of price. Let's have a look into a little bit more detail of, well, what are the managers saying about this kind of deal? Well, Phil Parkinson, if we start there, the manager of Wrexham, he has gone out and he said in there, I think it was a press conference earlier this week, he said Kieffer is currently under contract at Sheffield United, but he's one of a number of players that we've been looking at over the summer. The landscape in the market changes very quickly from one week to the next, and we're looking at lots of options. Ruben Selles, when he's been asked about exactly the same thing, was equally evasive, if we're being honest with ourselves. The fact he didn't come off the bench against Chesterfield last weekend, I think was really telling in terms of where United are at with this deal potentially taking place. But what Selles actually said in addressing Moore's absence was, Kieffer is our player. I don't deal with those situations or proposals or gossip, and I don't think he was ready to play for us today. So I decided to play with other players that we want to see. There is nothing from my side. He was still here doing his job, working hard for the team. He's part of us, but if the future something happens, let's see. A long-winded way, if we're being honest, in terms of what both managers have said. It's a long-winded way of saying that they're not releasing any information. They don't want to tell us. They're not going to go out and immediately go, yeah, all the reports are true. He's off to Wrexham. He'll be there tomorrow. That's not how managers work in the modern day. But I think it's very clear that from what they have said, there are discussions ongoing. There are conversations that are currently taking place about Kieffer Moore. Wrexham have confirmed he's a player they're interested in and somebody they're trying to bring into the club. And from United's perspective, it's become clear that Big Kief, as we sometimes like to call him, and by we, I mean me on my own, in my bedroom. No, not in my bedroom. That sounds weird. But yeah, very much it seems as though there is a transfer potentially on the cards there, and we should expect to see some movement happening over the next few days, maybe the next couple of weeks, that might see Kieffer Moore move across back to Wales and to be representing Wrexham. So what would that actually mean? So that's where the reports are taking us, but what would it mean for the two clubs if this transfer were to take place? Well, let's very quickly cover what it might mean for Wrexham, because if we're being honest with ourselves, and if anybody who's followed the Wrexham story over the last few years is, reflecting on what they do, this would feel so on brand. This would just feel like almost the quintessential, Wrexham are going to make a signing. Obviously, it's a 32-year-old centre-forward who's a big man up front, because that is just their absolute bread and butter. They brought in players like this consistently since the new ownership have come into the club. More than 6 foot centre-forward who's over 30, taking big wages. Well, that is just what they've done every single season. And we're talking about Stephen Fletcher in League 2. We're talking about Jay Rodriguez when they're in League 1. Ollie Palmer back when they were in the National League. They love a big man up front on big wages for the level. And they've currently got about 700 of them. I don't know why they want another one. I mean, clearly the ones they've got probably aren't of championship standard. They probably do need to improve on what they've got at the club right now. But, if you just do a quick run through of Wrexham strikers, Stephen Fletcher, Sam Smith, Ollie Palmer, Jack Marriott, Jay Rodriguez, they're all on big wages. They're all going to be being paid a good whack in terms of what they want out of them, in terms of how they've been able to actually entice them to go to Wrexham in the first place. That none of those are going to be the first choice for Wrexham next season, because they've also signed Ryan Hardy from Plymouth. It's likely that he's going to be the first choice centre-forward who's going to start the majority of games for them. And then, of course, they're now looking at Kieffer Moore, who would come in there. And I think looking at the other players there, the names that we've mentioned, it's very clear that Moore would go in and be a step above what Wrexham have currently got available to them. As a big man up front, he's much better than Palmer, Fletcher or Smith. And in terms of actually being a bit of a threat, he's a bit younger than Jay Rodriguez. He's less injury prone than Jack Marriott. And I think you could really form a good partnership between Hardy and Moore, which, I don't think Wrexham this season, if I'm being honest with you, is going to make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to be a really good championship team. I don't think they're aiming to be a promotion-chasing championship team, despite what some of the noise or the media might tell you. They're looking to get themselves up to the level and to keep themselves in the championship. A good season for them is finishing 16th. That is progress. That is them actually stabilising after an unbelievable ride through the leagues. And I think if they were to bring in Kieffer Moore, they've got a pretty good mid-table championship strike force. It would strengthen them, make them a better team, but it's not going to make them playoff contenders. It's not really going to make them a team that I'm looking at and thinking are going to be one of the big boys in the championship. It's a decent move for them, but it's not a needle mover. But, Wrexham, let them do what they want to do. What does it actually mean for United? So, I addressed this slightly earlier on, but let me start off by saying I think Kieffer Moore was highly underrated in terms of what he's actually done for United. I think a lot of his contribution that he did last season has gone quite under the radar and has been forgotten in one moment of madness that took place at Wembley. I think he was a player who throughout the season gave everything he got for United. I think, we saw around Christmas time where he was carrying on playing despite the fact that he needed hernia surgery. He played a massive role across the 2 legs of the playoff semi-final where we absolutely dominated against Bristol City. And that partnership that maybe he was looking to build with Tyrese Campbell, the way that we were trying to create that front 2 towards the end of last season, that looked quite exciting to me. I thought there might be a future in that. It might be a way forward for how United want to play. He's also a big boy. I'm going to call him. That's what I'm going to say. The terminology I'm going to use. He's a big boy. And United have lost so much in terms of physicality and in terms of height already in the last, going back to last summer. We've lost Harry Souttar. We've lost Vinicius Souza. Now we might be looking to lose Kieffer Moore. In terms of height, physicality, strength, we have lost so much out of the club and it's making us look a little bit small. And so I think that losing Kieffer Moore does mean that United are once again looking for another area where we might have to recruit. That is a very positive side in terms of what Kieffer Moore brought to United. There is another side to that. For all of his good attributes, for all of his physicality, his strength, for his hold-up play, I think it is still fair to say that it's not really worked out for Kieffer Moore at Sheffield United. 5 goals in a season where he started quite a lot of games, played a lot of football for United, We were dominant at the top of the league. We were on top of teams, creating chances, one of the best teams in the league, and he still only managed to get 5 goals. That realistically just isn't a good enough return from somebody who you want to be your main man and your number 9 up front. He did have a little bit of an injury and fitness issue. We don't know how well he's going to have recovered from that. And at 32 years old, having had hernia surgery and the impacts that can have on you, this seems like a really sensible move to be able to get a player out of the club and give us a little bit more funds in terms of being able to recruit behind him, but also to get somebody who's on big wages to somebody else without strengthening a direct rival. I also think that when we look at the squad right now for United, he's what, 3rd choice centre forward? Is he 4th choice after how well Ryan O'Neill has done through pre-season? And so realistically, if an offer is coming in, it makes perfect sense for Sheffield United to sell on Kieffer Moore. And it makes perfect sense for us to let him go to Wrexham. And if they're going to pay us this ridiculous money, absolutely jump at it, get that in the coffers, get it swelling the pockets, and then let's get it spent on getting more talented players into the club, building the kind of squad that Ruben Sayers wants to use next season to make us challenging right up at the top once again. So for me, yeah, Kieffer Moore, if he's leaving the club, he leaves me with best wishes. I say to him, thank you very much, but this is the right time, it's the right deal, and it's best for all parties that we cut loose and that we all move on from what he brought to Sheffield United. But that we now need to take action, and United have work to do in this transfer window to make sure that we are now starting to replace players like Suter, like Moore, like Souza, and that we stop building a small team and make sure that we're going to be physically competitive next season. We have lost so much average height. I bet our height has dropped a foot with the loss of just those 3 players. And that is concerning to me with the start of the season, only 2 weeks away. So I think we might be physically vulnerable those first few weeks. So we need to make sure we're getting our recruitment right. We need to make sure we do bring in a player with the profile of Kieffer Moore. There have been players rumoured, which I think is exciting. The players we've been talking about, I know there were some rumours last week about Daniel Good-Johnson, son of Ida Good-Johnson. He's a big lad. He's not very well tested in terms of playing lots of football, scoring lots of goals, but it looks like he could be a real prospect, and he is a bit more like that physical profile we would be looking at. I know another player who has been rumoured, believe he's called Isaac Romero, playing for Sevilla. I know there's been lots of reports that he might be a player coming into the club very soon. He's a bit older, 25, a little bit more proven, having been playing with Sevilla in La Liga, but he's not exactly torn it up. So it'll be interesting to see what United do in terms of replacing Kieffer Moore and bringing a new player into the club. But that's the main thing for me now. I'm happy to wash my hands of this. I'm happy to say thank you. Let's move on and let's get the replacements into Sheffield United. Let's get them wearing red and white. So let's have a look at what the fans think about Kieffer Moore's time with Sheffield United. And I think it's very clear that he has not left himself the most popular man, shall we say. Andy Wright immediately came in with a taxate for Moore. Luke Davis very much is looking there where he just felt that he was underwhelmed when he watched him play for United. And you know what? I think this is fair. And I think, I've been really positive about what he's done since coming in and wearing red and white. But I do think underwhelming is the perfect word to use when describing Kieffer Moore's time with Sheffield United and at Bramall Lane. When he came and played against us for Cardiff, for Barnsley, for Rotherham, I saw a really big, physically dominant striker who always made the defenders look small, gave them a difficult time, and always looked capable of scoring a goal. When he wore red and white, when he played for United, his hold-up was all right. He looked quite big, quite strong, but he very rarely dominated. And he never looked like scoring a goal. And I mean that with all due respect. Just never really looked like a player who was going to kick on, get 10, get 15, get 20 goals in a season. And I think that was really the biggest memory I'm going to have of his time with United. He wasn't as good for us as he always was when he played against us. And I think that is probably the biggest indictment you can make on his time with Sheffield United. And Paul Young maybe makes it a bit more clear as to why that was the case. He could have been a good player, but we never played to his strengths. We never put crosses in the box. We never got the ball there where he would be able to attack it. We never played in a way that would suit Kieffer Moore. We were trying to be fast on the break. We were trying to use our wingers, and we were trying to play nice, intricate football. That wasn't his style. And I don't think we're going to be moving now to being a team that plays long ball, that's whipping crosses in constantly, that's always trying to hit the big man up front. And so once again, we won't be playing to his style. makes sense again to let him go. So there we have it. A very quick one today, just reflecting on Kieffer Moore's time and what it means for United and Wrexham going forwards into next season. I think this is a perfect deal. I would be delighted if Wrexham can get this one over the line and they can pay us the big bucks for Kieffer Moore, because I think it's just, again, blown my mind that they would pay £4 million for him at this stage of his career. But I think for United, we have to bite their hand off and run if we can get that amount of money. Yes. So thank you very much for joining me. Massively appreciate everybody who has watched or listened to this one. If you're listening back to this one at a later point, let us know in the comments of Kieffer Moore's time with Sheffield United, what you think about his departure, whether there are any names you've been hearing on the grapevine that you think would be a fantastic replacement for his role in the squad. But more than that, let us know just how excited you are. It is now, what? Is it 11 days? Is it 10 days until the season begins at home to Bristol City? Let us know how excited you are, what you're expecting from United next season, and just how much you're looking forward to finally getting yourself back to Bramall Lane, a safe football ground where you can enjoy watching a professional and well-run football club. There has to be one of them in Sheffield, doesn't there? So thank you very much for joining me here today, Blades. I cannot wait to see you soon at Bramall Lane. Up the Blades. Olé, olé, olé.